Humanity Matters.
Thank you for joining us at HMTV. We're here for part 2 of It's All About the Children with Ryan Golditch. We are going to continue our conversation a little bit about your experience in Poland. And then I did want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier about your interests in terms of what you want to pursue for the future. So when you got there and you saw this quote that says, "Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it," I just want you to talk a little bit to how your learning about the Holocaust differed from you showing up to that place and why you feel every student needs to take a trip there, or maybe every single person needs to take a trip there because of what's happening in our present day and how we're seeing history repeating itself in terms of this messaging.
Yeah, there's a saying that history repeats itself. History rhymes with itself. So you can't see exact parallels, but you do see remnants of the past coming back in. One of those forms is an antisemitism. And I know a lot of the youth sees it on a daily basis. And I know it's existing, but it's coming back into our politics. It's coming back into our world. And the Holocaust was one of the most massive examples of anti-Semitism, but it's existed for generations. It existed from the times of Jesus and the biblical times all the way until the present day. So it's not something that has come in and come out. It's always existed. Being there at Auschwitz reminded me of what happens when you have that level of anti-Semitism, and it's something that you can't just grasp by watching Schindler's List. It's not something you can grasp by just reading a textbook, because when we say the number 6 million, it takes less than a second to say 6 million, and it's 11 million combined. It's almost impossible to comprehend by just saying those words. But when you're there, when you see the shoes, when you see the hair, when you see the belongings of the prisoners, the victims, it brings you a whole new level of understanding. And it's just a powerful reminder that we need to stand up for ourselves. We need to stand up for our religion. We need to stand up for our faith, for the things we believe in.
Most 16-year-olds don't act the way you do, I'll tell you.
Thank you.
Your mother is very lucky, and your school is very lucky to have you in your community. And hopefully the Republican Party one day will be lucky to have you. Kids today that are in high school are sending a lot of very different messaging, and they're using social media as a platform to do so. So you were just sharing some things that you see on social media that I've never seen, and I see a lot of things that I just can't even believe are even allowed to be put out there, truthfully. How do you think we can change that for these kids who don't want to even, recognize that the Holocaust could have happened, or are, playing into the propaganda? What do you see starting this chapter?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think it's their fault. I don't think that these kids that just go online and post these anti-Semitic comments or make these anti-Israel, anti-Jewish jokes, it's their fault. I think it's more of a fault of the education system, because I don't think that we put enough of an emphasis on genocide education. I didn't learn anything about the Holocaust in school. Actually, during world history, my teacher said that we didn't have enough time to talk about the Holocaust and skipped over it. And I think that, unfortunately, our survivors, a lot of them are no longer here. But the ones we do have, the sons and the daughters also of the Holocaust survivors, we need them to share their story. And we need to put more of an emphasis on learning history, learning factual, unbiased history, so that students are presented with the raw facts and they will make do with the decisions that they make based off of that.
I'm going to agree with part of it, right? They don't know. Kids are just listening and repeating what they hear.
Exactly.
And a lot of things can be coming from home that we may not know about. And they're repeating that too. So as a teacher, I participated in some professional learning that was being given by an organization called CARE. And I learned new facts about the Holocaust, a Holocaust happening in Rwanda to the Muslims, which I didn't know was happening. And I'm wondering how rewriting history in this way, how are we preventing this rewriting of history, because it's clearly not facts. It's not framed in facts. You said that a lot of this is being brought into like the political, climate, or I don't even know. I never thought I would be so involved in this in my life, but it seems like it's seeped in everywhere. And
George Orwell warned about this
over
80 years ago in his book 1984. I read that book when I was about 10 years old, and I can tell you that I thought it was a great book, and I didn't think anything of it. I just thought it was a great fictional book. And then when I grew up and when I look around the world today, I see its parallels, because 1984 describes a society that's completely communist, completely state-controlled, and that history can be rewritten. And as it's shown, George Orwell warns us what that society becomes. It becomes a slave society. 2 + 2 = 5. Ignorance is strength.
And you see that happening now?
Yeah, I do. When I look at the rise of socialism in these major cities, New York, when I look at this rise of third world cultures coming into this country, namely Islam, I'm worried about what the future holds.
One of the things that I want to say, we have right now DSA, the Democratic Socialist Association, whatever they call it.
And they're running a candidate in my capital city.
Okay, now, the one thing, since you mentioned briefly, and you can talk more about it if you want to, but a lot of people call Mamdani a socialist. Mm-hmm. He is not a socialist. He is a communist. I lived in a communist country, and very few people know that communism basically to achieve their goal, and they don't care how long it takes, it's not every 2 years or every 4 years, the new people coming to power. But interestingly enough, their goal is to destroy what exists today and to build something new. What's happening right now, and I want your opinion in it, is basically the enemy is within us, It's here. And their goal is to destroy what we have, to build what they call blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into it. So I want your opinion, how you deal with it. And in my personal opinion, a lot of people, like you mentioned one word, people are afraid. I am not. And I tell young people, I tell everybody, things will get worse before they get better, but everything is cyclical. We went through so many storms, so many difficult times. We prevailed. And to the world, I have a very strong message. We are here to stay, whether you like it or not.
Well, we're coming up on the 25th anniversary of 9/11. And I think back to Auschwitz. Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Less than 25 years after one of the worst days in America, where we lost over 2,000 of brave men, women, and children, we elected a democratic socialist. And don't call it democratic. There's nothing democratic about it. You can have a cake and you can call it a vanilla cake, a chocolate cake, but it's the same cake. And it's not even socialism. It's communist ideology. It's ridiculous to even brand it as that. The policies are the same. You can call it whatever you want.
The thing that I've noticed, I'm curious to ask you a little bit about school in Rhode Island. Do you go to public school
I do.
out there? Okay. And you also said that there was going to be an election soon with some DSA members.
Yes.
So one of the things that I've noticed over the last 25 years, because I was there in New York City on 9/11, and we saw what happened, and, you know, we've kind of held on to it. A lot of the beliefs and a lot of the values, I think, that are American are being challenged now. And everything has kind of become a framing of, you know, oppressor, oppressee. You have to
Exactly.
choose a side. It's a very one-sided narrative. And when things are being questioned, you're the bad guy. So, you know, like, I know that my children, you know, at home, we talk about everything. And when they go to school, you talked about how you knew that there were teachers that didn't like you.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there were teachers that also had opinions about my children based on beliefs that they had and things that they shared because they weren't afraid to speak up about things. But not a lot of kids are like that, right? So how do we take your energy, give it to all the other kids so this way they can have that same, you know, and put it out there? I'm wondering, you know, like about school and how you're kind of dealing with that. It must be tough.
Well, earlier you mentioned it must be lonely to be a conservative in public school. And yes, it is in public school. And there's some others, but unfortunately none that match my level of enthusiasm about the topic. Luckily, I was blessed with a great mentor and teacher for a couple years, Mr. Manning, who has since retired at my school, but he helped me start my Turning Point chapter, and he was a great friend, an old school conservative. Didn't like Trump so much, but, you know, a Reagan guy, and I love that. So I travel so much that I'm not alone. I have so many friends across the country that are conservative, and I chat with them, and we talk all the time. But it's learning the right history. So many of our textbooks in schools are biased, and actually, there was a study done, I forget by who, but they found that most, if not nearly all, of the textbooks in circulation in public schools are left-leaning and biased. And to learn actual history, you want to learn a patriot's history of America. You want to learn the unbiased facts and be proud of your heritage, because in Providence, they were, in my capital, home of Rhode Island, they were trying to make it so that you didn't have to say the Pledge of Allegiance anymore in your school. And I'm on the morning announcements team at my school. That will never happen. We will always say the Pledge of Allegiance. But it's being proud of your heritage. And unfortunately, that this is due in part of social media, in part of schools, and in part of the broader culture. We need to put more of an emphasis on what it means to be an American. And we need to be proud of our country.
You're right. Right. What do we all have in common? We're all American, right? So how do we celebrate that?
One of the things that I say in this country is the only country in the world where we identify ourselves by our heritage. Jewish American, Israeli American, Afro American, Irish American, Italian American. And I say one thing. When I lived in Romania, I adapted to the Romanian culture and I became Romanian. Mm-hmm. In Israel, I adapted to the Israeli culture and I became Israeli. I'm here. I adapted to the American culture. I am an American. However, I am always proud to be a Jew. So what I teach the young people is to say, if you ask them, who are you, what are you, is to say American, which unites. But to be proud of their heritage and to teach their children and grandchildren about their heritage. Okay? Because when you use Jewish American, Afro American, whatever it is, subconsciously, one group, okay, means is inferior or superior to another one. And we have to be one nation under God. You have people from Tunis, you have people from Algeria. When they go to France, they don't call themselves French Tunisians. They are French. We are here. We are Americans, one nation under God. And you eloquently said the same thing.
And to go to your point, you mentioned in one nation under God. In this country, we have liberty, and we have something called e pluribus unum. It means out of many, one. And you can go to the U.S. Capitol and you can look up and you can see that phrase. But even better, you can look at your coin, any coin, penny, nickel, dime, quarter. You can see one nation under God, liberty, and e pluribus unum. E pluribus unum means out of many, one. And Reagan had a famous quote about this. He said that you can go to France, but you cannot become a Frenchman. You can go to China, but you cannot become Chinese. You can go to Japan, but you cannot become Japanese. But anyone can come to this country and be proud to call themselves American.
Wow.
Very well said.
I want you to tell us a little bit, with the time that we have left, what some of your goals are in the work that you're doing. You said you travel a lot across the country. How are you inspiring younger, high school students? Because this doesn't happen when we go to college. I know a lot of people are concerned about going to these college campuses, but things are happening obviously a lot earlier in schools. How are you planning to continue to share this message that you have kind of created with your Turning Point chapter and keep on building this community so that way you can make waves across the country? And then second, or part B, we all talked a little bit, and Sami and I have talked a lot about how there are really no laws in New York state, city. There are only 24 countries that mandate, and I use the term loosely, Holocaust education. You said your teacher kind of glossed over it. What are some things that you think that you and maybe your chapter or maybe young people could do to put a little pressure on elected officials to really ensure that we're teaching the kids facts about this and history is being taught the right way?
We need to stand up for conservatism in this country. We need to stand up for our traditional values. And at its core, conservatism comes from the word conserve. And what are we conserving? We're conserving our traditional values, and we're searching for the good life, a meaningful life, a purposeful life. But beyond any political ideology, what we really need is history. We need historical education to be ingrained into schools and not taught biased history, not cherry-picked facts, not told that America was founded by white old Christian males and this revisionist form of history that doesn't appreciate that we were formed on Enlightenment values, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal. We need to put more of an emphasis on that. And as far as standing up for my values, it's hard, but I think I'm making meaningful change. I know I'm making meaningful change on the campaigns I'm working on. Hopefully in my school, I am making meaningful change. And yes, every once in a while, we'll have a leftist come up to us and say free Palestine, or we'll get a rude comment about ICE or Trump or Charlie Kirk. But I believe that this is my calling to stand up for this. Going off on a little tangent, the last line of the Declaration of Independence reads, "And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." And I think that's what every American should put on the line. Because our lives, we should dedicate our lives to defending this country, to preserving our values, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And when the founding fathers wrote that Declaration of Independence, they risked everything because they were trying to create a new form of government, and they put everything that they had into that, and they sacrificed everything for that. And that's what we need to do to stand up for the one truth that is so under dispute in today's world.
I know that you said that one of the things that you wanted to do was study a little bit more, like mathematical, government and stuff in terms of like looking at candidates and races and things of that nature. So what do you kind of foresee happening in New York? I'm curious from your perspective, just being somebody who is learning and studying and seeing what's happening across the country, because New York kind of sets a tone for what's happening.
Well, I think that Mandami is going to fail, and it's going to be completely obvious. And he just sent out a letter to the top tier properties saying that they're going to raise the taxes. And I think that all these liberal white women that were so rallying behind Mandami are going to realize. In some parts, it's good that he got elected. So it's a lesson to them, and that it will never happen again, hopefully. Amen. But we need to wipe out this radical Islam that has plagued our country, and we're grounded on freedom of religion, but that has to have some limits to where you have not a religion, an ideology that is so antithetical. We had the Communist Control Act. We need something similar in today's world.
As a Holocaust survivor, in my presentation, I remind people that most of the crimes, like in any genocide, are performed by educated people.
Yes.
Okay, most of the regular people did not commit the crimes. It's engineers, doctors, nurses, teachers. And I don't know what's happening in your school where you go. But interesting enough, I tell the teacher, teach him not only the mind, but also the heart. And before I will give, after you answer the question, how you feel about it, I will give it to Carin to end this session. But I want for everybody to know what they have learned today from my perspective. Is that a lot of people today like to assume things. Okay. And we learned today that learn the facts. Before you judge, you have to understand why. And that's something that you do, explaining things. Before you hurt somebody, you have to learn to feel. And at the same time, before you speak, think. That is very, very important. And finally, from my perspective, we have to change the wording from we, them, and to change it to us, to be one people. And after that, Carin, after you will reply to my comment, Carin will end the session.
I love that. In this country, we need unity. And that's something we can just say simply, but it's something we truly need. I see one of the issues is political violence, and that's something that needs to be stopped on all fronts. Charlie Kirk was someone that was such an inspiration to me. And just seeing all the violence in this country, we need to come together. We need to be proud of America, because America is the greatest country in the world, and it doesn't even come close. And we, as Jews, we need to proudly stand for our heritage. We need to proudly stand for Eretz Yisrael. And we need to not be afraid to carry on this work, because we are the silent majority, but the silent part has to stop.
Brian wrote a beautiful article in the Rhode Island newspaper. And interesting enough, he's very eloquent. I'm very honored. I'm very happy that I was able to bring him.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of It's All About the Children on HMTV. I appreciate my guest, Ryan Golditch. Thank you for sharing some insights on you, your education, and what you hope to do in the future. Thank you, Sami, for being an awesome co-host, and for Bernie and HMTV, and we hope to see you next time.